Everyone, how are you doing? Good Friday evening to you. I hope you're doing well this Friday night. And whether it be nighttime or daytime, that you are doing well. I'd like to introduce my.
Everyone,
Hold
how
on,
are
Mr.
you
Wait, give me
doing?
1 second. I
Good
got some.
Friday evening to you.
That's called feedback. Did y'all hear that? I did. uh, Well, let me get back to the introduction. I'd like to introduce Rebecca Smith. Rebecca, how are you? Welcome to the Friday Night Live show.
Doing well. Thank you for having us.
Good. I am so excited to have you here. This is one of those topics that, most people don't like to talk about. But as you and I have been talking previous in our meetings, this is something that we have to address.
Yes.
And so it's a serious subject, but I think after I saw your presentation, Rebecca, that in learning your story, I believe a lot of people are going to be much more knowledgeable. And to be knowledgeable is to have an understanding and advantage. Would you agree?
It is. It is very, especially with this subject, you have to have as much knowledge as you can to be informed to help yourself or someone you love.
Yes, absolutely. And particularly the love part of this. And we're going to get more into that. Before we get started, I want to talk to Darren. Darren, who is a member of our community, his dad stepped through the life portal. So he has gone through the birthing process and his journey now continues on. And I just want to say, Darren, we all send your father positive energy. One of the things I have learned from Barbara DeLong was that when we pass over, the energy that we think about here is going to help there. And so often in our culture, particularly in the Western culture, we approach death with one of mourning and sadness, which is really not, because what you're saying is that there is a certain finality, there is a certainty of which no human knows. I've yet never really have met anyone who's gone over there and come back. Have you, Rebecca?
No.
No, neither have I. Now, there are those intuitives that can communicate to the other side, such as Barbara. She has that gifting. And we know based upon her trials, then when I say trials, don't think that this is like a trial, because when you are sitting with a loved one who has lost a loved one and they want to know, is that loved one all right? That's serious stuff. So Barbara has had that gift. So Darren, we just wish your father much peace. We send him forth energy. And most of all, we send forth him friendship. And I think friendship is a very positive energy, Rebecca. I really do. So I also just want to say hello, Trisha G. You and I are going to get together here next week. Hey, Brian, how you doing? Yours is on the way, my friend. I just want to say hello. So we've got about 80 people in here, Rebecca. So thank you for letting me give recognition to Darren's dad.
Oh, thank you. And just let Trisha know that I'm the crazy lady that emailed her about the suicide information the other week.
All right, Trisha. So Rebecca is that person. So welcome, everyone. Welcome, Raven Wolf Channel. Hello, everyone. So Rebecca, when you first wrote me, it was one of those type of emails that you had a passion, you had a story, you had a life experience, and you communicated to me. You and I talked. And when I found out what you were doing, to me, it represents, I think, the tenacity of the human soul, because it shows that how enduring our souls are, that no matter what we encounter, we have the strength to move on. But unfortunately, some don't. And you experience that personally. And so, what I'd like to do is just give you the opportunity to, you've been on in the chat room many times. So, just introduce yourself and why don't you, if you want to, share your story that brought you to this point. And by the way, let me digress here, folks. She has started a nonprofit called Spare. We're going to talk more about this. And have you set it up to where you can take donations?
That was my plan for today, but I had the incident this afternoon that I told you about. So that will be done by tomorrow.
Okay. Well, you send me that information
Okay.
and we'll get together in this community. And listen, I'm a believer that it's not the large gift that really counts, it's the multiple small gifts.
Mhm.
So I think tonight, after you see and hear Rebecca's story, make the determination. And so, Rebecca, we'll do our best to help promote you on that. So
Well, thank you.
you have the mic, my dear. So what got you to start this nonprofit, particularly where suicide is? What led you up to this?
Um, 4 years ago,
Okay.
April 14th, was my suicide attempt, which I survived. It was a handful of Excedrin. It was a spontaneous suicide, is what they call it, or an attempt. I had a migraine. There were marriage problems. I had a migraine, went to the bathroom to take something for the migraine, and standing there with 2 pills in my hand, heard in my head a voice that said, 2 of those will make your headache go away. The whole bottle will make everything go away. And right then, that thought that I would never have entertained before made all the sense in the world. I didn't hear my kids in the hallway anymore. I didn't hear my husband at the door asking what was going on. I just heard that voice going, this is going to make all the problems go away. And I took a handful of Excedrin. And my mother had to come down, and the look on her face, I will never forget. And my husband took me to the emergency room. And the Excedrin in my stomach brought up everything I'd ever eaten, all the way back to breast milk. It was not pleasant. But I had a lot of time to think. There had been some problems, and I decided to make changes. My husband and I had been married 16 years at that point, and the changes on May 13th, while we were on FaceTime, he took his life with a 9mm in our living room. He was an EMT. He was a firefighter and EMT. The shift that had replaced his shift that morning had to answer that call. The men that he'd worked with for almost 20 years had to go to our house and run that. That even with the problems and the decisions that were made, it took a year, I guess, for it to be real. The kids and I kept waiting for him to come home. It took me a little over that to start really deciding that I needed to do something, that this is not something that anybody else should have to go through. Nobody else should have to explain to their kids why mom or dad is not coming home from the hospital.
Right.
A parent should not have to explain why their child is not here anymore.
Right.
I got a call from about a year after Tim passed away. I got a call from a childhood friend. Her husband, who had been a firefighter, had done the exact same thing. And she was asking, how do I tell the girls? How do I tell our kids? And I'm thinking, this has to stop. And then I get the bullying and the online stuff. And I'm like, parents,
Bullying?
the bullying and everything that's going on now. I'm like, the parents should not be burying their kids for this. There's got to be a reason. And I got to thinking, like we talked about it.
Right.
And I had suffered from depression for years. My husband was being treated for depression. Everyone who has attempted suicide or completed suicide has depression.
Yeah.
That's unquestionable. But not
Was his cause, Brenda,
Mhm.
was his cause by his job, or was it?
It was a mixture. I mean, I'm not
Okay.
going to lie. We were having marriage problems.
Yeah.
That was part of it. He had a very stressful job.
Yes. Yeah.
He also had trauma that went back to his childhood that I did not know about for about 15 years into our marriage. He had just started dealing with that in counseling.
So he had issues. Okay. This is,
Yeah.
and this is relevant to this conversation and the
Yeah.
presentation you put
Yeah.
together. How many times? I think it was Trisha G that actually brought this up, and I've brought it up, is the fact that we have so many people have these open wounds
Mhm.
from childhood,
Mhm.
even in adolescence, that have festered under the surface. And although some people become, well, let's be honest, we all are masters at masking the pain.
Right.
Your husband was in an environment, now he was basically where he was having to respond to life and death situations all the time, wasn't he?
Right. Yes, he was.
Yeah. And bringing that home, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was it? So, just when his trauma happened, it was in the 70s. And what
A lot of
the
stigmatism.
atmosphere was in the 70s. There was not a lot of child psychologists, psychiatrists. There was not a lot of help with children that experienced certain traumas.
Yep.
And so it was not dealt with.
Yeah.
And here he is as an adult trying to deal with this trauma and realizing the damage it had done, not only to him, but to his past relationships.
Yeah.
And his relation and our relationship and the relationship he had with the kids. And that was overwhelming. He was also on antidepressants, which so am I. I genetically do not make enough serotonin. So I'm on a small amount. He was on one that he was not reacting well to. Instead of weaning him off and weaning him on, they stopped him and started him on something else, which I did not find out until later. That did not work well. So it was all these little drops of water that filled up his cup, and then it spilled over.
Yeah.
And, the decisions that I had to make were not because I did not love him anymore. It was because I needed him to love him before we could repair our marriage. And I had made a decision, a line in the sand. And whether or not that was the final drop, I don't know. But he made a decision.
Yes, he did.
Well, I say that, but at the same time, it wasn't him.
And that's the core of what
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about
Yeah.
tonight, folks.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So what you have done, do you have your PowerPoint ready to go up?
I do. You talk me through.
Okay. So as you're pulling that up, I'm going to go ahead and give some background to here, folks. What Rebecca is talking about is that what she just led the clue into. How many of these events happens that where we find it's not the individual who's really making the decision, but it's a chemical that the imbalance is put into the brain that interrupts what I would think a matter of the synaptic pathways in that. But I find your testimony about when you took the Excedrin that you heard a voice in your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had never thought about it. I had never entertained it. Now in all, in disclosure, that with him being a firefighter, after we had children, we got a life insurance policy, and he started joking, "Oh, well, I'm worth more dead than alive." And then, things would get tight, and he was like, "Well, maybe I just need, to just die and you can have the insurance money." No, 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 no. And then it got to, well, maybe I should just kill myself. It's like, no, 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 no. And it went on and went on and went on. And I didn't take it seriously because I believe that, oh, well, if they threaten suicide, they're not going to do it. No.
That's a myth. I mean,
yeah, that is a myth.
That's actually a cry for help.
Myth. Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that then. Had I known it, I would have called. The other thing is, I was afraid, oh, it'll cost him his job. He's got all this stuff he does, he's responsible for. I didn't want to interfere with his job, and, taking his job away that would be the thing that took it away, pushed him over. And unfortunately, in emergency services, and I'll talk about this for just a moment, the emergency services, they have so much help available, but there's still that stigma for them. Just like a lot of society, that asking for help is a show of weakness. Asking for help means that you can't deal with your job.
Jeez.
And that needs to stop.
Yeah. Well, folks, listen, sometimes it's a voice of one, a voice of 100, but this is something that, again, we can add to your voice. So go on, Rebecca, because I just want to say, I admire you, because what you saw, what you had to endure. Listen, all the people that are in the chat room, all of us, and I'm thinking, I can't imagine it. So to be able to take that and turn it into what you've done. So what have you found about depression and suicide?
Okay. Well, I want to get one other thing in there.
Okay, good. All right, go ahead.
I'm very proud of my husband. He, after his death, was still saving people. He was an organ donor.
There you
and
go.
All of his organs were donated.
What was his name?
Tim Smith.
Well, Tim, sending you positive energy, buddy.
He, between the organs and the tissue and the bone marrow and everything else that they take, he has the potential of touching 160 something lives.
Yeah.
He saved, I don't know the organ count, but however, I think there was a kidney they couldn't use. But other than that, the kidney, the heart, the lungs, the liver, all of them went to people that desperately, desperately needed it. And we have actually heard from some, and it is just so heartwarming. I haven't had the courage to write them, but to know that there's a granddad that got a Navy veteran that got a heart in Ohio that is now playing with his children, or his grandchildren. I mean, I just couldn't. Tim, that would have made him very proud. So
I love this. This is what I love about our species, Rebecca, is that we have the ability, even in the midst of great tragedy, we can turn that into such great joy. And life is joy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. So I would like to, after the funeral, because they did talk about during the funeral, he had a full firefighter funeral. Had military honors, Masonic honors. It was a beautiful thing. But there was actually a firefighter that left the graveyard and went that day and signed up to be an organ donor. And I would encourage anyone who is not a donor to please sign up to be a donor, because there are so many people that are signed up to be donors, but because of their death, it's either prolonged getting to the hospital, to damage. There's so many factors that, 8 out of 10 donors don't make it to actually donate their organs.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, there's a very slim margin that that make it to the point that they can, the organs are donatable.
Okay.
So the more people we have, the greater chance we have of getting viable transplants.
I didn't realize that, less, the 20% is the only
Yeah.
ones that actually make it. That I did not know that.
Yeah. So
All right. So,
this is what I found.
all right.
We're going to do kind of a basic little brain biology course real quick, and then
Okay.
I'll get to the meat of it.
Okay.
I'm going to try to do this without my glasses. I wore glasses for 20 years, had laser, and now I'm back to having to wear glasses. I'm putting it off as long as I can.
You're doing well.
All right. This is the limbic system of your brain. It is the second part of the brain. It was the reptilian brain is here.
Okay.
The limbic system is here. It's also called the mammalian brain. I think I said that right.
Mm-hmm.
We have the neocortex that's here, and that's the youngest part of our brain. This part here is responsible for emotional responses, processing our emotions, motivation, memory formation. The olfactory nerves are here. Our fight or flight, self-preservation is in the limbic system, and this is all very important. You also have a limbic on the right and left side of your brain, or your hemispheres. Oh, get out of there. What are you doing? All right. This is the amygdala. Little bitty almond shape here and here. There's two, one for each hemisphere. The olfactory nerves, or the olfactory senses, go right into the amygdala. The brain can actually smell danger, or we can actually smell danger before the brain picks up on it because of this connection right here. I'm sorry, I'm reading my notes. Okay. This, I think you'll find interesting. This is the pineal gland. This is the hippocampus. Right here. It's the little seahorse thing right here. This is the pineal gland. You should recognize this right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's the eye of Horus.
Yep. I also found it too is how it's protected.
Mm-hmm. This is the very center of the pineal gland is the very center of your brain. And then you've got the other stuff packed around it. Sorry, I'm nervous. I'm reading my things.
No. You're doing great.
I was calling that spatial memory for about 2 days before I looked it up and figured out it was spatial memory. Navigation, which does not work very well on me.
There are those who theorize that the pineal gland is actually how should we say, it is the interface that the spirit, the soul, is able to express itself through the mechanism that you're now describing.
Oh, I got something for you.
All right. Continue. You do great. Love this.
The anterior cingulate. It actually creates expectations. I think this is the part that gets us in the trouble. This one creates expectations. And when those expectations happen, the outcome, it sends out signals to the brain to create memories. But this is also the little thing that creates expectations of people or things. And when it doesn't meet our expectations, the negative impulses are sent.
Wow.
Yeah. This is the little expectation thing. This Francis Crick also said this was a likely candidate of free will in humans.
That one small section of the brain.
Yes.
As you describe this, Rebecca, I am seeing how when we take it from the interface, how now you begin to see how specialized this organ really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Continue. This is very fascinating. Great presentation.
This is the insular cortex. And again, it's on both sides of the hemisphere. And it's the little lining right in this area. There's an anterior and a posterior. This is where emotions are recognized. I don't want to say formed because I really think emotions are formed in the heart, but that's me. This is where emotions are recognized. Anger, hate, love, lust, everything is recognized and sequenced in this area. This is also where it is believed the state of union with God is felt, is in this area right here where our emotions are correlated and categorized right in here.
It's also the area that they have identified as well is the area of the brain that is stimulated by electromagnetic frequencies. And particularly when this particular region of the brain that you're pointing out here, Rebecca, how it can begin to be manipulated and controlled.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think about it, it's very interesting. If this is the region of our brain where we perceive whatever God is, if you can begin to control that or in any way alter that, I don't know, it seemed like it would have an alteration all the way across the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Go on. This is cool.
Now, this could be broadened. I narrowed it down to just what we would be talking about tonight. I mean, I could do a whole hour on just the outline of the brain. These areas, I'll go back here. All of this is tied in with the emotions.
Okay.
This is where depression happens. This is where schizophrenia. This is where bipolar. This is where Alzheimer's is. It all has to do with this one area of the brain.
I get such a, when I look at that formation and realize my wife, who deals with, unfortunately, more and more people that begin to show signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, how the hippocampus and the ability to recall memories is so tied to our entity. Mm-hmm. And when you take that away, yeah, all right, great.
The glutamate, it's going to come into play later. The glutamate acid, by a wide margin, the most abundant neurotransmitter in the vertebrate nervous system, being used by every major excitatory function in the vertebrate brain, and that's all vertebrates. It does vary slightly between vertebrates, but all vertebrates. It accounts for well over 90% of the synaptic connections in the human brain. Because of the role it plays in synaptic plasticity, glutamate is involved in cognitive functions such as learning, memory in the brain. The plasticity comes in with memory and damage, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. It also comes in, the synaptic plasticity starts going away with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Cortisol. The lovely makes you gain weight. Cortisol. It is produced by the adrenal cortex and within the adrenal gland. It helps to create memories of short-term emotional events. A long-term exposure will damage the hippocampus.
Interesting.
Let me slide down here. Sorry, I can't see it.
That's all right.
Just a moment.
There it is. That's fine.
It's very easy to practice this when you don't have live people. The brain-derived neurotropic factor is a protein in the human brain. The limbic system has the ability to regrow neurons. The BDNF plays a major role in nurturing and encouraging, nurturing existing neurons and encouraging new neurons to grow. I wish I had the study in front of me. I was doing research on Alzheimer's about 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
They are finding people, they're doing MRIs on people that should be full-blown Alzheimer's that are showing no signs of Alzheimer's because they consciously learn a new task, and that creates new synapses. The brain is rerouting around the damaged synapses. And they're not showing any Alzheimer's.
Outstanding. May I interject in here, folks? This is why, and Rebecca, I'm not going to just put an insert in here, is the fact of why being creative, when you do drawings, colorings, things that, as Barbara said, you got to get creative. Yep. And I believe, Rebecca, that this is exactly what happens. It produces that glutamate that allows the synaptic pathways to begin to be built.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
That's why I tell my kids, I try to be nice once a day, which is usually in the car line at school. And I try to learn something new every day.
Well, right on, Mom.
This is kind of, a diagram of how the BNF works with different, the glucocorticoid, the antidepressants, stress, antidepressants. It kind of shows you how it interacts with each thing because it does have different properties with it. Microglia. The glial cell surrounds the neurons and provides support and insulation between them. It is kind of the maid service of the brain. It runs around cleaning up neurons that are not needed anymore, dead cells, infections, that kind of thing.
I always call them the sucker fish.
That's it. Yeah.
They're cleaning the glass, man, yeah. And out there. Yeah.
Yeah. They're kind of like, the scrubby amoeba.
Exactly. Great. Right? That's exactly it.
For reasons they are not sure of yet, they can go rogue. You can have good gangs and you can have bad gangs. And they are thinking that is, they're being studied for their role in neuro diseases, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's.
Degeneration of the cells. Yeah.
English is hard for me sometimes.
No, listen. Sometimes it's hard for me to spell my name. So go for it.
I tell people, I joke, I don't even call my kids by their names because you get them mixed up. I have them numbered 1, 2, and 3.
Hey, listen, you know what? We all would love to have, John Boy, good night, it doesn't work that way. All right. This is where we're getting into the good stuff.
This is the meat of it. When things go wrong, research and studies are showing that depression and suicidal ideology are more than just in our heads. They are in part the brain reacting to how we treat it.
Whoa. Let's just, that to me is important. Mm-hmm. How our brain is reacting to how, and when we use the word we, you have to begin to now what this community is knowing about, Rebecca. Here is the importance of the soul. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing this, how the brain is reacting to how we're treating it. Mm-hmm. That's profound. Go on. This is great.
Data suggests that depression is related to a dysfunction in the brain's glutamatergic system. Zinc and magnesium have been shown to be antagonists to the MNDA, and do not make me say what that is. Receptors in the hippocampus. Stress-induced levels of cortisol affect the hippocampus.
So are they saying here is now I take zinc and magnesium every day. So I'm curious on this. And I think I'm answering my own question, that the reason why I take it is because I know what it does for my brain. I know what it does for enhancing the ability of me laying down synaptic pathways very quickly. I have to. This is what my brain works on.
Right.
Is this what this is showing? And that a lack of that?
No, what the research that I saw was that there are people like you that react well to zinc and magnesium. There are people that do not react well to zinc.
Ah, interesting.
So if you start taking zinc and magnesium and you start not feeling good, or you start being depressed or sad, you need to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, you would, well, my doctor said I needed to do this. No, you need to stop because your body's not reacting well to it. There are other things you can do to strengthen your mind. I'm going to show you there are other things
Excellent.
that you can do to make that area stronger.
This is important again, Rebecca. I mean, how many people in this chat, and I mean, I'm not looking in there now. This is too important, that don't know these things and probably have been poisoning themselves with what your body, with for me, would be a benefit, but for another person would be a toxin.
Right.
Good
When
God. And then when you're talking about the brain and then affecting the areas, for instance, of expectations, emotions, I mean, come on.
Yeah. My kids, the day I was on a rampage one day because I'm looking at these reports and I'm trying to find the newest, the latest information. But some of the stuff I'm finding is going back to 2015. You know, the latest I could find was 2002 on some of the stuff.
Wow.
They were referencing stuff from the 80s that was referencing stuff from the 70s. And I'm like, you people have had this information this long and it's not common knowledge? Really?
Well, that's the equivalency of giving us, two sticks to start a fire when you've got, a gallon of gasoline in a lighter.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm not going to get started, I promise.
All right.
Depressed suicide attempters have smaller hippocampuses than depressed patients without suicide attempts.
Wow.
This is the dividing line. This is the answer to the question that we were talking about earlier about why do some attempt and why do some not? It is the hippocampus. It is the size. It is the damage that has been done to the hippocampus. And one other thing. A small hippocampus was found in 65% of participants in a recurring depression study. Professor Hicks said the more episodes of depression a person had, the greater the reduction in size of the hippocampus. It was shrinking.
All right. So No, go ahead.
There are other research that show a genetic link. So you might have people that are born with a genetically predisposed to depression or predisposed to self-harm because they have that genetic link to a smaller hippocampus. It's not saying that it's not healthy. It is simply smaller. And with the hippocampus, the bigger, the better.
Yeah.
So there are, I've got it here, there are biomarkers that can be used to see if you have this link. I think that's something that should be tested for. But that's
Yeah. I mean, I listen, I took the Berkeley test and I know exactly what my genetic makeup is. And I agree with you. I think it's something that everyone should do. Your genetic markers are your genetic markers. I mean, there's no negative or positive thought on that. It's just what it is. So, yeah.
And if you've got something that's switched off and it should be on or on and it should be off, and you know about it and you can take steps to sidestep problems with it, then you need to. Like if you know that you were born with a smaller hippocampus, I'm going to show you things that you can do to grow it.
Let's go.
To pump it up and make it stronger. brain inflammation is the other part besides the smaller hippocampus. People, I'm trying because there's some other research. I added research last night.
Mm-hmm.
Researchers are now looking into whether or not suicidal thoughts in people with depression may be linked to abnormal inflammation in the brain. And this makes sense because mine came on with a migraine.
Okay. All right. And that's typically a cause of inflammation in the brain.
Right.
Yeah.
People with depression who are experiencing serious suicidal thoughts were found to exhibit significantly higher levels of TSPO, which is a translocator protein associated with microglial activation and indicating inflammation of the brain. This is when the microglia go rogue. This research suggests that inflammation is linked specifically with suicidal ideology and not with depression more generally. When inflammation of the brain was noted, was usually in the region called the anterior cingulate cortex, which is involved with cognition and emotional processing. Signs of inflammation were also noted a bit smaller in the insula cortex, which plays a role in regulating emotional function, and in the prefrontal cortex, implicating a cognitive process related to behavior.
And I can testify to this as a survivor of meningitis. That's what it is. It's an inflammation of the brain as a result of, the inflammation in the spinal cord.
They, just the people that just my husband watching him slide, which now, if I had known now then, but that's in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But just talking with people that have survived, or people that have survived suicide, or people that are survivors of suicide and that they have lost a loved one.
Yeah.
This is so important because the inflammation, the smaller hippocampus, it changes your perception. It changes your cognitive, just everything that you're seeing. It's like looking through a fish eye lens. Everything is black and white and grainy, and you're staring at a brick wall, but you're not seeing the window or the door.
Exactly.
Everything has narrowed to a very small focus for you. And the smaller hippocampus and the inflammation would explain that, in that it's affecting those areas of cognition, and things that made sense no longer make sense, and things that did not make sense now make sense. And that's what these people are dealing with. They're dealing with this hippocampus that is not functioning the way it should. And they're dealing with this swelling in the brain. And that is jumbling everything up.
I wonder how many people on a day-to-day basis, Rebecca, normal, everyday people who think that they have nothing wrong with them other than the fact that they get depressed, they have anxiety. Could it be something as simple as what we would call arthritis, a sprain, inflammation?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. Let's continue. This is just fascinating.
This is what I added last night. Okay. I dug for days because I remembered seeing it. I just did not remember where I'd seen it. The brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Because depression is an important causative factor in suicidal behavior, it is interesting to examine whether suicidal behavior is associated with alterations in BDNF and its cognitive receptors. It is more interesting to examine whether alterations in BDNF in suicidal subjects are independent of depression. So they are being able now to, their suicide and depression are now being separated.
Interesting.
You can have one and have the other, or have one and not have the other. This is post-mortem studies. These reductions were associated with significant decrease in the protein level of BDNF. When we divided suicide subjects into those who had depression and those who had other psychiatric disorder, we found that the decrease in expression of BDNF was present in all suicide subjects, regardless of psychiatric diagnosis. Our findings demonstrate that suicidal behavior may be associated with the increase of the BDNF functioning.
Wow.
Now, what they were doing here is the patients that were depressed and died of, no, there's not that study. There was a study where they had depressed patients that had died in their brains. And then they had depressed suicides and other psychiatric, schizophrenia, bipolar, and that's this one. And there is a difference in the natural death depression brains and the depression suicide brains. And it all relates back to this BDNF factor, the protein. And it's decrease in the hippocampus area.
Interesting.
Are we eating depression? Now, I have food allergies, so I know that there are things that your body does not react to or react well to. I'm not going to read all this, but it's talking about there is an emerging field. And I thought I had it on here. I don't. There is an emerging field of psychiatric that is dealing with nutrition and how food is reacting with our bodies, the natural things that are found in food and the things that are being added are, how the body reacts, how the brain reacts. Are we eating things, even something like bananas or apples or strawberries or apricots, people can have reactions to? Are we eating natural foods or processed foods that are adversely affecting our brains, even if they're healthy foods?
Well, I think the problem we have today is that we know that with the altercation on the genetic level of probably now 70% of the food that most Americans eat, this doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, in fact, I'm sitting here kind of thinking to myself, this is why we're seeing in so many cases, I think, the radical behavior and change and modification of behavior of mass amount of people.
Mm-hmm. And this is what worries me about the younger and younger kids committing or taking their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a 12-year-old in Florida this week that hung herself.
12 years old.
12 years old. We think that we are feeding our kids healthy. We're watching their screen time. We're trying to monitor their online media and stuff. And she was being bullied online. And the person is being charged with cyberbullying, which I'm all for. But, again, as a parent, you're like, I'm cutting back on the fast food. We're eating more fruits, more vegetables, more this, more that. I'm trying, we're drinking more water. But is there something in the food, the healthy food that we're feeding our kids, that might be triggering something in their brain and we're not realizing it?
Yeah.
Is there something in the water? It's scary as a parent because you just don't know. And you don't have this information. Did your child experience, like my kids? I mean, their dad took his life. I mean, that was a traumatic event in their life. and they've been through counseling and we talk about it. But that could have had a very adverse effect on their hippocampus. The stress from that, the cortisol release, might have done long-term damage to their hippocampus. That's something I have to be aware of. That's something, there are techniques that I've learned here that I'm going to start implementing into our family to help them build a strong hippocampus.
So you have these, you can actually show people how to begin to do this, huh?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So let's see. This I found, all right, fedup.com. It's out of Australia. It's a wealth of information. I recommend people go to their site. They just have so much. But Royal Prince Alfred Hospital in 1986 released this food-related depression that is sometimes significantly intense to provoke suicidal thoughts just from eating certain foods.
My.
Let's see. Now this site also recommends there's an elimination diet that you can do. They recommend doing it with a dietitian, but there is a list of foods. Do I have it? Nope. There is a list of food on their website that they recommend you cutting out. And then you add them back a little at a time to see how you react. Now, I did not put that on here, but it is on their website.
Very interesting.
The Western diet. Stuff that we're eating. I'm from the South, so my favorite food is fried. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's fried. That's not good.
Every time I hear that, I think of my cousin Vinny joke as she walks out. You ever hear the ongoing cholesterol problem? What are grits? Anyway, I digress.
Do you know I'm allergic to grits? I have adult onset food allergies, and one of mine was corn. I'm from the South and cannot eat grits.
I have
not been ran
hominy.
out.
I mean, hominy. I can smell it. It's got that yeah. That makes me depressed thinking about it. All right. Diet. Western, we're
Western diet
ourselves is what you're saying.
There have been a lot of studies, and here are some, and it has to do with the nutrients in the food. The nutrients dense foods are what we need, and we eat a lot of empty calories. We eat them, we drink them, we feed it to our kids.
Well, let them eat cake.
Yeah. I mean, we're so much regular at Chick-fil-A that they know our names, but
so what I'm getting here, and as you continue, I'll let you go to the next slide, but the point that I'm seeing here, Rebecca, is the hippocampus.
Yes. The hippocampus.
I mean, they're jacking with us.
Yes.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure I was following.
And this also and I added this because a lot of people do not know that foods you eat can affect your brain. I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I knew about allergies, but I didn't know that there were things that could cause inflammation in my brain. I didn't know that. This I added, and you've got a wonderful group that follows you, and they can look this up. But this is information on the Mediterranean diet. And there are comparisons between the Western diet and the Mediterranean diet and why one is better than the other.
So can I just say something on this one here, Rebecca? One of the things I learned, about a decade ago, is that almonds, hazelnuts, those kind of things that I keep on my desk. And now I found that you can get smoked salmon that's like beef jerky.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so anyway, these are the things that we don't talk about here in the Western world. We don't talk about it in our food. And look at what it's saying to us is that this could be helping us to prevent from the onset of depression.
Mhm.
All right,
And
I love this.
Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I mean, this goes beyond. You've got to remember, this is affecting the region of the brain that all these other things are going on. And this information's out there. It's just out there quietly sitting there, waiting for nobody to see it.
And then in the meantime, in the United States, and this was according to, I think it's the New England Journal of Medicine, 7 out of 10 Americans are on some type of drug, and over 50% on antidepressants, anti-anxiety, you name it, in this area. I mean, this is alarming. This is a pandemic. Okay, I'll let you continue.
No, that's fine. And 50 to 75% of people on antidepressants do not respond to the antidepressant they're given.
And by the way,
So they're either they have to up them or they have to keep changing them until they hit something that works.
and let's just be very blunt here. All of them are urinating into the public sewer systems. Guess what? We can't filter out. Yeah. So we're all drinking it.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a break. I got to get one more drink of this sewage water. I'm a little depressed here. Anyway, go on.
Actually, I have a cup of water beside me. I don't want to drink it now.
It's,
Right. How bad is it? Nearly 1 in 4 American have some type of mental illness. The CDC says by 2020, depression will rank as the second leading cause of disability after heart disease. It's not just a problem for adults. Half of all long-term mental disorders start by age 14. Today, childhood mental illness affects 17 million kids in the U.S. alone.
all I got to say is, ay, 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 ay.
And
Are we witnessing a train wreck here?
yes, we are.
Yeah, that's what I'm picking up as well.
Recent studies have shown the risk of depression increases about 80% when you compare teens with the lowest quality diet, or what we call the Western diet, to those who eat a higher quality whole food diet. The risk of attention deficit disorder doubles.
You know, I want to say something about the ADD. Now, I'm not saying it was around when I was a child, but I do not remember that it just wasn't around. I can't remember any of the kids in our class taking anything.
I had it. I was on Ritalin. I don't remember. I remember taking medicine, but it seemed like I was always sick as a kid, so I was always taking something. I took Ritalin, but it wasn't because I was all over the place. It was because I would get bored in class and be off in my own little world and not have any clue what the teacher just said. So I was on it to bring me back, not because I was all over the place, but to get me focused.
You know, the only thing I got when that night was actually in the second grade. I was a carrier of strep throat, and I can remember getting penicillin shots twice a day. That's the only thing I got when I was a kid. Everybody else got sick, but anyway.
I have my medical records from my pediatrician when he retired, and he wrote in his handwriting on my chart, "sickly child."
Well, now I think we're seeing why. I mean, let's continue. This is great.
All right. This gentleman right here, Professor Peter, and I'm not going to say his last name. I thought you would find very interesting because he wrote Deadly Psychiatry and Organized Denial. He has also wrote a book on big pharma and the corruption of medicine. And he tells how the antidepressants are increasing suicide.
Yeah.
My husband was on one of these. These come with black box warnings about the increase in suicide. Now, I am on one of these and I've never had a problem. I know people that are on these that have never had a problem. But I've also heard of people, including my husband, that have been on these and went, I mean, his physical appearance changed. I had heard about that, but I'd never seen it in person. His facial features changed when he started taking one of these medications. It was frightening. And his whole demeanor changed after that too. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Drug companies and doctors push children into suicide while claiming that their drugs protect them against suicide. Can anything be worse than this? And as usual, the drug agencies have protected the drug companies. If I'm not mistaken, this man used to work for pharmaceuticals.
Oh, I have no doubt.
He has stuff on YouTube too. This is the big one. This is so much of the research is going in completely a different direction than what these treat. And yet these are still the antidepressants that are pushed. This, I won't go through this, but I left this for you to read and your audience to read. And again, this comes up from fedup.com in Australia. Again,
excellent.
This is The Pill That Steals Lives is a book that was written about this information. This is out of order. I apologize for that. But these are the things that are in foods that people react to. The salicylates are found naturally in foods, plants, fruits, vegetables, herbs, spices. The wholesome, whole food, organic stuff that we think is safe to eat. For a lot of people, it is. For a small portion of people, they're going to react to it. And they're thinking it's something else. And they need to know, people need to know that, this might be a problem. People hear about gluten and you hear about dairy and some of the MSGs and stuff. You hear about those. But you don't hear about the salicylates or the amines. I'm not really sure how to say that. Those are in chocolate and bananas, fish and meat.
Mm-hmm.
You might be reacting to that and think you have depression. And all you've got to do is stop eating it. You may be on medication for hearing voices or seeing things. And you're eating healthy fruits and vegetables and organic meat and things, thinking I'm living a healthy lifestyle. And it's the food that you're eating.
Amazing.
How to help the brain.
People are enjoying this. They're learning here.
Oh, good. I was afraid they were all going to get bored and leave.
No.
Research shows that we have the capacity to grow new neurons in the hippocampus.
All right. So this is really what we can begin to do individually to help counteract this. All right. I think this is the core. Let's go.
This is it.
Well,
we can help the hippocampus become bigger, stronger, better. Exercise, even walking, 20 minutes, a mile a day, just add a mile, just walk up and down stairs, walk, just get some steps in. Aerobic exercises, anything like that. Chase the kids around, chase the dog around, chase your wife around. Let's see.
Chase yourself around.
Chase yourself around, you know?
I love what Stephen Wright said, how he got revenge on his neighbor whose dog would never stop barking. He said his neighbor left one morning, and he said he crawled over the fence and he snuck up on the dog and put one contact lens of a cat. The dog died chasing its tail.
I'm not saying that's something I would do, but that's something I would do.
Anyways, this is good. So, all right. So exercise, the simple thing they keep telling us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be strenuous. Like I said, just walk to the mailbox a couple extra times a day. Make your neighbors, wonder about it. Mindful-based cognitive therapy is the new psychotherapeutic treatment that has been proven. There are 8-week interventions on mindfulness, mindful meditation that are being introduced that are showing across the board improvements, helping people become mindfully aware of themselves, their thoughts, their feelings, their interactions, everything.
Amazing.
Mindfulness, meditation regrows neurosynapses. Did I hit the same one?
Yep.
Okay.
Here we go.
There is empirical evidence in support of using mindfulness to decrease the risk of depressive relapse. Also within the study, MBCT was associated with a reduction in depressive and comorbid symptoms and increase in quality of life. Comorbid symptoms are suicidal thoughts, are self-harm thoughts. Simple, mindful meditation that you can do at home. The reason that this has become such an epidemic is because people do not want to be labeled depressed. They don't want to be labeled suicidal. They do not want the stigma of getting help.
Right. Yeah, because no matter how much they say that we're all inclusive in our society, yet we will put the stigma of the red M on the forehead, mental illness, or the scarlet S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are so many mindful meditation apps that you can download and you can do from the privacy of your own home if you cannot find one of these groups. And part of the problem is that they let's see, the concern that all right, you got a challenge and difficulties in implementing this program in the widespread manner and training a significant number of practitioners.
Yeah.
They do not have the people trained to be able to implement this.
Well, I don't know. I think about the amount of holistic healers and doctors that are turning up dead. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
That's depressing.
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute.
It's like,
be waiting for people to knock on my door. But going back to this, there is, and I've, where I directly just brought information over, I've got the link so you can go directly to them. There's just evidence after evidence after evidence that the mindfulness research, it's proving to be effective.
Yeah.
The helping people heal their minds, heal the hurt, heal the damage that's done.
Excellent.
And rebuilding the hippocampus and rebuilding their sense of self, because that sense of self is in that inner core of your brain. And it's, that's what's damaged.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, we're over, aren't we?
No, I think
I'm done. This is that was the last one. How about
There we
meditation?
go. I like this. Yeah.
Yeah. These are 7 things that meditation helps you with. Helps you boost neurotransmitters, deactivates anxiety and depression centers in your brain, solves the psychology of depression. Again, it gives you that sense of self. It helps you. For me, after my husband's death, it helped me learn to unbundle everything I was dealing with and put things aside and say, okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to figure out this. I'm going to deal with this anger. I'm going to deal with this hurt. I'm going to deal with this resentment. And then I'm going to put this over here and I'm going to bring this out, and the anger and the hurt and the resentment. And I learned to work on things, emotions, one thing at a time, instead of trying to do it all at one time.
Yeah.
One thing at a time. Meditation makes us whole again. I fully believe that it reconnects our heart to our brain and gets that whole dual system going again. I mean, we're a binary system. The heart and the brain are 2 systems that are supposed to work together.
I think most people have forgotten what both are. I doubt if you'd go on the street that you could actually ask people to define what their soul is and compare it to their heart. And I'd be curious to see what you would get.
Yeah.
Well, this,
I have
go
2
ahead.
books to recommend too.
Okay, good.
And again, where you can get this. Smart people. These are people that were in all of this research that I looked up. They have websites, or they just have a lot of great information out there. This gentleman right here, I thought of you when I saw his thing.
I love
He's a
this.
philosopher and a psychologist who was also trained as a physician. And nowhere in the thing about him does it call him Dr. James. He is always William James.
I bet you he was a very enlightened individual. I mean, what do you think? I do.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean,
And I also sent you the links for all of the other research that I did.
Yes, and I'll put those in, and of course, people can see these as well.
I want to recommend 2 books. This one is Heart Code. I don't know if you can see that. It's by Paul Purcell. Jenny Moonstone actually recommended this. I heard her recommend it.
Okay.
It's an excellent book.
Excellent.
He's passed away now. He was a transplant doctor.
Was
and he was one of the early people recognizing cell memory in transplant patients. That you had people that were couch potatoes that were suddenly very active, finding out their donor was, a marathon runner. You've got people that were in their 60s who were suddenly very youthful and vibrant, and come to find out, that their donor was a teenager. And he started doing research into cell memory and came up with the heart code and stuff, and it's wonderful. This one is my kids' therapist recommended it after their father passed away. It is called, don't let the title fool you, it is full of useful information. It is Adult Children of Alcoholics. I have bought this for friends to use.
Okay.
This book is so full of information on understanding how it's just from I've lost my words, from a psychological thing, understanding your relation with other people and their relation. It deals a lot with parents and looking at your parents and going back to when they were kids with their grandparents. They are because of the way they are, because of the way they were raised. Excellent. And helping you trace that back.
Okay.
It's very, and that's hard to understand. That's not really, but it's an excellent book and I highly recommend it.
Excellent. I think release the controller because I think some people were not able to see it. We're a very small window right now, and that's
I'm
the
sorry.
no,
Oh,
no,
I'm sorry.
it's
I can't
it's
find my cursor. All
yeah.
right.
So
So
you just release.
share.
There we go. Now, could you
Okay.
show
I'm
those
sorry.
two books again
Okay.
because they didn't get a chance to really see them? All right, there we go. All right, excellent. And which was the other one? That one I think
Um,
would be very interesting. The Heart's Code. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Excellent.
excellent
Thank you.
books.
Excellent.
It's been a while since I've read the Yellow Book, so I could have a better description on that, but I don't. But I found it very useful.
Hmm.
In not only trying to understand my husband and some of the things he did, but even relationships within my own family.
Yeah.
You really don't, you look at someone and how they're acting and you don't trace it back to why are they like that.
Sure.
And it was very helpful.
So from there, you started a nonprofit, Spare. And what is the mission statement and purpose for Spare?
Spare is suicide prevention, awareness, resource, and education.
Excellent.
And our mission is to shed light on suicide and to start the dialogue, to get people talking about it,
Excellent.
because and to educate people. We are working on a website now, and we will have links to starting conversations with people that you think might be depressed or thinking of self-harm, because that conversation is so hard. And people don't realize that any conversation that gets people talking is a good conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
we are also there are a lot of great suicide nonprofits that have the information on, to get help, seek counseling, talk to somebody. They have the information of where to reach out. You can do it anonymously over the internet now, and you don't have to talk to anybody face to face that you might see again. So we have decided to dig deeper, to find this information and to bring it out and to share it, and so that people can help themselves. I'm very much a person that looks, my kids hate it, but I'm like, can I do that? Can I
Yeah.
build that deck? And I build a deck. I mean, you find information that you can do and you do it. You help yourself, you empower yourself, you lift yourself up. And when you lift yourself up, you're able to help somebody else and you're able to lift them up. We cannot fully love someone until we fully love ourselves.
Yes, I
Until
agree.
we fully accept ourselves, we cannot fully accept someone else, even our own children. If you don't fully love yourself, you can't fully show love to that child. And that
Bingo.
child is modeling how they show love from you.
That's what I see. It's happened to us as a species is that we have repeated this cycle and now we've really complicated it by, you know, drugs, synthetic drugs that the pharmaceuticals put out. And, you know, I appreciate this because in a way, those who choose suicide is in many cases, I think, is either the pain becomes so great or it's not really them.
It's not.
Yeah.
It is not.
And
Um,
I heard that Michael Jackson said his last words were, I'm dying. I don't want to die. Now, there is a person that was aware that, oops, you know, and I think about this and what you went through. And the thing that you gave me, what you showed is that we can help build these areas in our brain, the hippocampus,
mhm.
the other parts of our brain by number one, respecting our brain. I love that concept, Rebecca. That's what I'm walking away with of all the things. And it was very informative, but that one is loving my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Who thought that? I mean, that's just so freaking cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and just, exercising it and loving it and taking care of it. And
Mind coitus, folks. Mind coitus.
yeah. And just, and there some of the research, and I didn't add it in here, but they were talking about the meditation and having your healthy brain will depression proof your brain.
Meditation.
Yeah. Just 5, 10, 20 minutes a day.
Folks, we're learning.
Yeah. Or if you're like me and the kids are going at each other, you just put the headphones on and they come in like, crap, she's meditating, and they leave. So, you don't have to get in the middle of it.
Now, eventually I see him joining mom and going, oh, far out.
Yeah, really.
But anyway, well, Rebecca,
someday. I'm working on it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been an educational experience, and I appreciate the manner of which we dealt with this subject. We dealt with it, I think, in a respectful, a very serious, but yet we were able to inject, I think, the one thing that we all need, and that's joy.
Mm-hmm.
We laughed even in the face of those things that can be yet so tragic for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great
job.
Thank you. And
great job.
Thank you for having me on and to helping me spread this message.
Well, listen, this is something, and when you get your website up and you get it ready to go, I'll make sure to do a special segue, and so that people can have the opportunity to contribute if they so desire.
Okay. We are working, the Facebook page is up.
Okay.
And
what would that be?
It is Spare, I believe, Spare to Save a Life on Facebook, or it may just be under Spare. Okay. And tomorrow I will have the donation button working. That was my plan today, and I had something else come up. It will be working tomorrow, and that will be through PayPal. Folks,
this is a worthy cause. I mean, it really is. This is one. Here is a mother, a widow that her husband was in the business of saving lives. And, it goes without saying that whether they be a first responder or a law enforcement officer, that these men and women put themselves on the line every day. And when we lose one, we lose a valuable part of our society. And I'm very proud of you, Rebecca, and it's been an honor and a privilege to have your voice here because you speak for, I believe, millions of other voices that are not heard. So I thank you. I wish you the best of success. You're a part of this community, and I will have you back, and I'd love to get updates to how it's going.
Thank you. If I can, my email is spare to save a life at gmail.com. And anyone who has research that can help us, I'd appreciate it. Constructive ways. I do constructive criticism, but I do not do destructive criticism.
Good point.
So if you can help me in any way, I welcome it.
Well, Trish G has already made a tremendous offer that she is going to do some readings and going to donate it to Spare. So there you go.
Thank you.
And we'll continue to make sure that we raise the awareness on this.
Thank you.
And again, I am so humbled by this community. All of you in here that have stayed with us tonight, you're the core of what this group is about. And we have a group called the Core 100. If you want to be a part of that, you need to get a hold of Carol. Let me know. And again, if many of you want to get behind Rebecca's cause here, have her on your channel. If you have a channel, I think this is how we get the awareness out as well. And we'll keep spreading the word because, listen, if we can save one person within our group, Rebecca, from being so depressed, feeling that they're so isolated and alone, knowing that there's a resource, then we're going to do it.
Thank you. Just one part. I mean, just if someone hears this and it's like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm feeling, or this is what my child is feeling, or if this is what my parent is feeling. Sorry.
That's all right.
That's one of four. If one person hears this information and it's helpful, I mean, it's worth.
Well, we're going to get the word out there, and we're going to get tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. So all of you tonight, again, thank you, Rebecca. Everyone, thank you again. Shameless plug on my part. Make sure to listen to me on Thursday night over at the artistfirst.com network, the Steiger Perspective. I'll be on tomorrow night for just kind of the Saturday night sit-in. We're just going to kind of just banter around some of the headlines, talk about some of the other topics. We got some great shows coming up. Mary Rodwell will be coming up in February. She is the leading UFOologist in Australia. Fascinating story. Laura Eisenhower will be on. We're going to have Dr. Claudia Albers back on. I'm going to be inviting Dr. Miller back on. And Rebecca, we'll have you back on for sure. We're going to get Trisha G back on as well. Yes, Trisha G, cats rules. They're cool. And that's all I got to say. and then on Sunday morning, we do the program over on Jeff Doherty's channel on the Not Your Normal Sunday morning program. So folks, be kind to one another. Rebecca, much success to you, dear. Thank you for your courageous and just, I love your energy. I love your energy. I love all of you. Be good tonight. We'll see you real soon. All right. Bye-bye.